So in our last video, you saw me put this reinforcement on the back of our blade guard. But going through the comments, one of the viewers, Aldoon, thank you very much for the tip, mentioned maybe plastic welding would work in here with some of those little zigzag clips. And I thought, why didn't I think of that? So that's what we're going to try today. So to do some plastic welding, I have a soldering iron, and I'm going to take out this little tip. You can see this tip is held in with a little Phillips screw. So take that tip out, and I'm going to manufacture a couple tips. So out of some Romex wire, this is just a 14 gauge copper wire, and a little piece of plastic pipe. A little piece of copper pipe. So we're going to cut this up and make a little tool out of that. And I'm going to test it on this little remnant of PVC conduit that we used for the blade guard. And try some metal screening. So let's see how this works. So the first thing I'm going to do is strip the copper out of this piece of Romex. So I've got 3 pieces to work with. Of course, the ground wire comes ready-made. There we are. So we now have 3 pieces of wire that we can bend into a shape that we want, or 3 different shapes, depending on the kind of welding tool that we want, and I have a couple in mind. The first tool that I'm going to make is a little more pointed. I'm just going to bend that in half. Just using any kind of tool here, any kind of a bit. What I want to do is pinch this to a point. So that's my first tool. Second tool that I want is just kind of a round tool. Round being a relative shape. So that's the second tool that I got here. Whoops. Can you see that? So just kind of round. And the third one I'm going to make is going to be a little bigger than that. But same idea, same kind of round. You need a bigger round thing. So I'll use that little piece of dowel. So a slightly larger spoon, I call those. So I have a small spoon, a large spoon, and a kind of a poker. Now I'm going to make one more out of the copper pipe that is going to be more of a flat spoon, and I can use that for smoothing out the material once it's cut. So I'm going to cut off a little piece of this and then do a little bit more cutting and hammering and shaping. So I'll come back as soon as I have that ready. So using my pipe cutter, I just cut off a small section about that big. I'm now just going to take the hacksaw and slit that so that I can flatten it out. And use a couple pairs of needle nose pliers and just kind of open it up a bit. Okay, nice flat piece of copper. I'm just going to draw the shape that I'm after here so I can cut it out. It's kind of like a little shovel. Or an arrowhead. My marker's not the best, but I hope you can see that. It's just kind of a bit of an arrowhead. So I'm going to cut that out. That'll be the tool that I want. So I took that little piece, I made a couple cuts in it. Now I'm folding it over. So I've got the shovel side of it cut. By taking this relatively square piece, I cut a small cut down here, a small cut down here. I folded those two bits up, and now I'm just going to kind of hammer it over itself to make a shaft or a shank. And get this into a shape that should fit inside the soldering iron. Going to take a little bit of finesse, I think, to get that exactly right, but I'll keep working away at it. Okay, I'm cutting out my little copper spoon. The first one didn't go quite as well as I but quite as well as I planned. It actually broke off here, so I wound up going to my Dremel tool just to do a little bit more of the fine cutting. So I have a shape now that I like. This end actually fits into the soldering iron. I think this is probably going to do what I want it to do. So I'm going to make a cut now, our test cut in here. And let's see how this plastic welding works. All right, got the PVC cut and mounted in the vise. Just a couple blocks of wood down the center of that PVC just to hold it steady. I have in my soldering iron now, we've got mounted our little pusher end. The intent with that is that I will go deep into the crack with that and try and get as much, penetrate as deeply as I can to get that cut melted and close in on each other, weld together. Then I'm going to come back with this guy. So I'll take him out, put this guy in, and just kind of go over the same kind of motion to melt a broader area. Then we can lay this on, that's our screening, and again use this tool and just kind of push that down into the melt. And ultimately finish up with this guy and some of the granular leftovers of the cut to kind of smooth out the whole surface. That's the theory. Let's see how it works in practice. So I'm not quite hot enough. Oh, I am. I'm getting hot enough. Okay. Not quite hot enough yet. So give this another minute. All right, we seem to have some good heat now. So what I'm doing is I'm going to get the wider part of this kind of resting on the surface of the plastic and try and tip the point down into the cut that we've made here. The theory being I am dragging material from the surface and pulling it into the cut. So now I'm kind of using a little pulse motion to try and drive that melted plastic, kind of mix it up a little bit in the join. And also it drives a little bit further deeper into the cut. In welding terms, you'd call that penetration. Okay, that's about all I can do with this tip. I'm going to bring the camera over here and show you what I'm doing with that. And then I'm going to swap out the tip for our kind of spoon tip here. So there's our weld so far. Here's a cut on the other side so you can see what it would have looked like. And I have, except for a little wee bit right here at the end, I have managed to close that in all the way down. And I can feel on the other side, on the underside, we have penetrated all the way through. There's plastic underneath. So our next step is going to be try and get, with this tip, we'll melt a whole broader surface and lay the mesh in and push the mesh down into that crack. So I apologize, that last video was on time lapse. I didn't really intend it to be that way, but anyway, it saves me editing. You'll be able to see the whole process. Okay, gave this a quick sand over with some 80 grit, then a little very light sand with some 120. Overall, doesn't look really pretty. And I probably could have pushed the screen down a little bit farther than I did. But just take a look at this. So here's the underside where I haven't done any welding, obviously. And you can see I can bend that, but up here, there's nothing. It's not moving at all. So is it doing what I need to do? Yes, it is doing what I need to have done. It is holding this piece steady. It has bonded these two pieces together. I think it'll work. What will I do differently? For one, I don't think that this tip is gonna help me as much as I need. In fact, I'm not sure that even this tip is the one that I want. So this guy, little pointy tip, he did well, and I liked him, and I think I would continue to use this. And I think using our smaller spoon, this guy, which we didn't use, would be better for pushing in the screen and for probably doing some of the ultimate smoothing here. So I'm going to try one of the joints on our blade guard and just see how it works with using those two tools. It's not going to make it any worse, that's for sure. So I'm going to bring that over the vise here and we'll try and make that happen. Okay, so I have the blade guard in place now. And what I've done is ground off the epoxy that was on this joint and even right down in between the joint. And I also put this little block of wood and clamped it in place because when this joint was epoxied together, it wasn't quite even and I had one part below the other. So they're now even on the inside. So that's why I chose this particular joint. The other joints seem to be like they're filled in with epoxy fairly well. So I want to try and weld this joint. And then we'll put that on the saw and just see how the thing behaves over time. I don't expect to be doing all of the joints, but I at least want to try that. So I'm going to put in our little pokey bit first, so we can smudge that all in. I'm going to cut a piece of the screen to fit in there, and we'll get started. All right, seems like we have some sufficient heat. Just going to draw some of the material down into the space. Now we'll do a little bit of penetration to mix it up together. I think I might have been moving a little quickly through here. I'm going to go back a little slower again. I want to make sure that even after mixing it, there's enough heat to make sure everything melts and bonds together. I'm going to go back and draw a little bit more material down into the joint. Do a little bit of penetration again. Okay, I'm going to switch up to our little spoon, do a little bit of melting, and we'll try and push that new screen down in there. So give this a chance to warm up, and we're just trying to dig out a broader trench through here. Just moving very, very slowly. This tip is doing a nice job. I like it. It's almost looking like a metal weld. Okay, we'll slip our screen on there. Try and get some purchase. That's burying in quite nicely. This kind of rocking motion seems to be helping a little bit too. Okay, I'm just going to try and put in a few shavings here, just see if I can melt that in a little better. Not sure the shavings are really worth it, but we're gonna give it a try. I don't think the shavings are really doing the trick. What I'm gonna go do is just cut a strip, a thin little piece of PVC from our scrap, and just see if I can make that work that in a little bit better, kind of more like a welding rod. So what I'm doing with the soldering iron here is I'm just kind of biting off a little piece of that. And then when it's on the surface here and a little malleable, I am just trying to push it around in this join. Get the underlying plastic and this little filler all mixed in. It seems to be working. And when I get some filler in here, I'm going to come back over the entire join, kind of a final pass. One last piece in here, and I think we're okay. All right, let's do this last, the last hurrah. All right, I think we'll call that one done. So there we have some plastic welding done with a couple strands of Romex and even trying a little bit of copper pipe, which I don't think was really necessary in the end. This cools down nice and quickly. A little bit of an 80 grit sand, and well, you can see the result. Yeah, plastic welding I think is better than the epoxy. Yeah, in fact, even over on this joint I can see this epoxy joint is broken. Yeah. I may wind up welding the whole thing. Anyway, I'm going to go have some lunch. Think about that and maybe do some more welding after lunch, but that's probably a wrap on this video. I'm still expecting to get my bandsaw blades arriving tonight, maybe later this afternoon, but as soon as I get them on, we'll continue milling up the cedar log. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.